Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then hi, my name is Erica, and today I am going to be talking about Shane Burcaw. Now, you might know him as Grubs from the YouTube channel Squirmy and Grubs that he has with his wife Hannah. But if you don't know who Shane Burcaw is, then I'll give you a brief overview. So Shane Burcaw is a man with spinal muscular atrophy, which is a subtype of muscular dystrophy, and he is married to an able-bodied woman named Hannah, and they share their life together online. But Shane started a non-profit called Laughing at My Nightmare, which was also the title of his blog that he kept throughout college and beyond, where he would talk about having spinal muscular atrophy, which I may going forward, since it's a mouthful, I may just refer to it as MA. So if I say that, please know that that's what I mean. But so he talked about his life being disabled, and he got a lot of followers on his blog. I think at the height of it, he had like 500,000 followers on his blog, which is a lot of people. And he also wrote 2 books that I read, and I have them here. I might not be able to pick them up. I picked them up. His first book was called, I don't know if you can see it because the lighting is hard to tell, but it's called Laughing at My Nightmare, and that was his first book. And then his second book was called Strangers Assume My Girlfriend Is My Nurse. And in this video, I'm probably I didn't really plan out exactly how I was gonna do this video, but I think what I want to do is, first I'm gonna go through both of the books that I read and my personal thoughts and takeaways from it as somebody who's also disabled, and then I'm gonna talk about some of Shane's online presence, but also how he is perceived in the disability community at large. So if you would like to see that, please just keep watching. And his first book, Laughing at My Nightmare, I found a bunch of issues with it, because I feel like he had, at that time at least, he had a lot of internalized ableism, which, if you don't know what that is, I have a video about my experience with internalized ableism. But basically, it's when you are a disabled person and you have internalized the ableist messages that society sends you. And it's fine to have sorry, my notes keep flipping the page because of the fan, but it's okay. But it's fine to have internalized ableism, and I would even argue that it's expected if you're disabled in an ableist society. who don't really have a choice but to internalize a lot of its ableist messages. Like, of course, you're able to unlearn internalized ableism, but especially in your younger years, you're not really going to know better. But a lot of the issues I saw with this book was toxic positivity, which I first noted in chapter 8. And sorry, I'm unorganized. But how he starts out in chapter 8, which is titled Andrew is a Dead Man, and it's about his brother and him. His brother's name is Andrew, but the first few sentences of this chapter are, how do you remain so positive? People ask me this a lot. The origins of my positive nature can be attributed to learning to handle adversity as a young kid. My whole family will tell you that I was always a happy child, constantly looking for the next source of entertainment, never allowing my wheelchair to get in the way of having fun. Still, I'm human, and humans get upset sometimes, especially during childhood. And while that passage may not highlight the issues of toxic positivity, in that chapter he goes on to talk about how his younger brother broke his video game and he was like about to win, so he got very upset. Obviously, like, if you're about to win a video game and then somebody breaks your like console or whatever, I don't know much about video games, but you're obviously going to be pretty upset. But the issue I find with that passage, and where I perceive there to be toxic positivity, is that he says, well, there's no use getting upset, so I might as well just not be upset. And it's like, Shane, that's not how emotions work. People are allowed to be upset and they're allowed to feel their emotions, but what people aren't allowed to do is allow their emotions to affect their actions in a way that can harm other people. And I feel like toxic positivity almost enforces the notion that we should keep in our emotions, which can be very bad for people. And I also feel like in this book, on page 51, he says he doesn't want to be defined by his disability, which is fine. Like, he can be defined in whatever way he wants. But as a disabled person, I'm kind of like, being disabled isn't bad. In fact, I think we should promote the idea that being disabled isn't bad, because by reinforcing the notion that disability equals something bad, we're reinforcing ableism. And he's also very obsessed with independence. And what I mean by this is, like, he doesn't want other people ever doing things for him, and he always wants to find a way to do things for himself, which is fine. But I kind of think he looks down upon people that need more assistance than him, which I find kind of odd, since he is a full-time wheelchair user and his disability seems to be very severe. So it's like, how are you judging other people? Like, you're just hurting yourself by judging other disabled people, because ultimately I feel that you're just judging yourself. But that doesn't excuse his behavior. And I just feel like a lot of times he has a superiority complex. Like, he has this one chapter of his book. Well, I'm still on laughing at my neck currently. I mean, I read it. I'm just not finished talking about it in this video. But he has this chapter called Whip Cap or no, it might be called Cripple Cap. I said Crip Cap because of the documentary, but he has this chapter about going to camp with other disabled people, and the whole time he's just making fun of them and talking about how much better he is than them. I think at one point he calls them immature and says, he says that they're like what he fears other people see him as. And how I took that was, I was like, buddy, let's do some introspection here, because it seems like you've internalized ableism, so now you're taking it out on other disabled people. And one of my friends, Kathleen Downs, also wrote a blog post about this when the book was first released. So I will link that blog post down below, because she talks a lot about his horizontal ableism and how he especially puts down people that are intellectually disabled. And like in one chapter where he talks about riding the short bus, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically a mini bus where disabled students typically use the mini bus, whether they're physically disabled or intellectually disabled. So he talks a lot about the other disabled children not being clean, which I don't think should be a judgment upon them. I think it should be more of a judgment upon the people who are in charge of taking care of them, especially since they were kids at the time. Like, why are you judging them, buddy? Please don't do that. But he also just makes fun of them, and it's almost like that chapter is kind of like a reality TV show where he's just poking fun at other disabled people, which I don't think is okay. And he also talks a lot about not wanting to be disabled, which I understand that, because there's always, even though I'm proud of my disability, there's always like a part of me that's like, my life would be so much easier if I was just not disabled. But I also know that the reason my disability makes my life hard is because the world is not really prepared for disabled people. And of course there are medical issues that arise with disability. I'm not going to deny that, but I feel like a lot of issues with disability are more social issues. And now I'm going to talk a bit about his second book, Strangers Assume My Girlfriend Is My Nurse. Now, I feel like the title is a bit deceptive, because although he does talk about his relationship with Hannah in this book, I don't think it's the underlying theme of the book. I must say that I liked this book a lot more than Laughing at My Nightmare, because I feel like he was a lot more introspective, and he kind of understood some of his past ableism, and he talks a lot about how he has mixed feelings about, if you don't know, there's a drug that treats SMA called Spinraza, and it can reverse some of the effects of SMA, but also it can prevent the disease from regressing. So he says he has a lot of mixed feelings, because on one hand he loves his life and he wouldn't change that he's disabled, because he in this book he sees it as a part of who he is, but on the other hand, like, he knows his disability is going to regress to a point where it will make him not be able to function. So, and I think it's very important that disabled people are honest about their feelings, and that's why I really appreciated his second book. But one of the things I didn't like about it is I feel like he, and this goes a bit into my next segment of this video, he seems only attracted to able-bodied women. And I'm saying seems because I don't know what's going through Shane's head, but he constantly is talking about how he didn't feel worthy to be in a relationship, but then again, he's always seemed to distance himself from other disabled people, so I feel like he was only looking for a relationship with an able-bodied person, which again I think is a result of internalized ableism. Now, there's nothing wrong with disabled people dating non-disabled people. I will never discourage interabled relationships, but what I do think is for disabled people to not even see other disabled people as hireable partners. It's like, that's why non-disabled people don't want to date disabled people, because we don't see ourselves as worthy of being in a relationship. And I feel like a lot of times the reason why he doesn't like other disabled people, and of course I'm using a bit of my personal experience in this, because, well, my experience is what I know best, but at least from my experience, being around other disabled people, especially people with my specific disability, which is cerebral palsy, it's like looking in the mirror and seeing my biggest insecurities standing in front of me, which especially when I was younger and I had a lot of internalized ableism that I didn't really deal with. It was very hard to be around other people with cerebral palsy, and I always wished that I had a different disability, because I just saw cerebral palsy as something that wasn't attractive, and it was something I was very ashamed of. But I also spent a lot of time around other people with cerebral palsy, especially at a young age. And there is a quote by the disability activist Stacy Park Milburn, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I don't know the exact quote, but he said something like, having other disabled people has helped me learn to love myself. And I feel like that quote really describes what it's like to be disabled and to be wrestling with internalized ableism, because the way that I have dealt with a lot of my internalized ableism is being around other disabled people, because even if you can't love yourself, it helps you learn to accept the parts of yourself that you really don't want to accept, because when the trait you're most insecure about is a trait that some of your best friends also share, it kind of becomes hard to hate that trait, because then you feel like you're hating on your friends, and most people don't want to do that. And I think that's a lot of why some disabled people don't really like Shane Burcaw, is because he's been known to be ableist and think he's better than the disabled community at large. And here's where I'm going to play. I don't want to say I'm playing devil's advocate, because I feel like that term has some connotations that I don't enjoy, because a lot of people with privilege do that in order to have an excuse to dismiss marginalized people, and that is not what I want to be doing here. But I do want to present another side to this argument, and that is that when Shane first started his blog, and even when he wrote his first book, he was only about 20 years old, and I think he turned 21 by the time he finished writing his first book, Laughing at My Nightmare. So I will say that at that age, a lot of disabled people are still struggling with their identity, and while that shouldn't give him a free pass, like, I do see a lot of myself in that book, and a lot of parts of myself, especially in the past, that were very problematic. So I will say that he has seemed to grow as a person over time, because even his foundation. Sorry, my dog's trying to walk down the stairs, and I'm getting kind of nervous. Munchkin, please sit back down, buddy. He's not listening to me. Okay, but Shane originally, his foundation called Laughing at My Nightmare was originally just supposed to be funding research for SMA and funding like yours and stuff like that. But in his second book, he talked about how he wanted it to, a lot of the money to go more towards helping actual people live their lives. So the foundation started paying for like people's mobility, equipment, and like things like that would actually help. It would basically meet people where they're at and give them the resources they need to be able to live a full life, which I really appreciated, because I think a lot of foundations are more focused on research and cures, and like that's fine in the long term, but you also want to be helping real people that are struggling right now. And I think that's something I really appreciated. And I think that's kind of it for this video. If you want me to discuss it more at length, or if there's a certain thing I didn't address in this video, because I don't know everything, so there might be stuff I'm missing, but then comment that down below and I will try to address that in a future video. But I think that's it for this video, and I have mixed feelings about Shane Burcaw, because I feel like a lot of times these issues are nuanced, and like, so like, you don't have to either love somebody or hate somebody. You can be sitting somewhere in the middle, because parts of them may be problematic, but other parts of them aren't, and you can see. Oh my god, my dog is yelling at me. You can see yourself in those people. And with that, I'm going to close this video before my dog hurdles me again. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you have not already and you would like to see more of my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.